That feeling, when life just throws something really significant your way.
Hey, yeah.
Maybe it's a personal challenge that feels all-consuming, or even just like the constant stream of tough news making everything feel heavy. We've all been there.
Absolutely. Facing adversity, I mean, it's just part of being human, right? And those times, they can really push our limits.
Well, today, we're not just, acknowledging those moments. We're actually digging into how we can navigate them better with more strength.
Building up that inner toolkit, so to speak.
Exactly. And our guide for this deep dive is a really insightful piece from the USPS Employee Assistance Program. It's called Being Resilient in the Face of Adversity.
Yeah, it's a very practical resource. And our mission today, really for you listening, is to get a handle on what resilience actually is, why it matters so much.
And the practical stuff too, right? The steps you can take.
Definitely. Concrete steps to cultivate it. Because this isn't just about, getting through tough times. It's about how we can keep thriving even when things are challenging.
Okay, so let's really get into it. What is resilience? I mean, beyond the buzzword. When we say someone's resilient, what are we actually seeing?
Well, the American Psychological Association, they have a pretty solid definition. It's the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or significant sources of stress.
Adapting well.
But there are other ways to think about it, too. Some define it as, like, getting back to a stable, healthy state after something really difficult happens.
Kind of like bouncing back from a hit.
Exactly that. And it's also described as our ability to tap into our own resources, our inner strengths, to keep our well-being up.
Being flexible, maybe?
They said.
Bending but not breaking.
That's a great way to put it. Bending, not breaking. And importantly, the EAP piece points out that resilience isn't just about recovery. It can actually lead to growth after those tough experiences.
So it's not about pretending the problems aren't there.
Not at all. The core idea is holding on to that belief in a positive future, even when you're right in the middle of something difficult.
Right.
And if you think about work, for example, that kind of resilience, it leads to some really good things like better leadership, being more open to challenges, putting in more effort.
Believing you can succeed, even when it's hard.
Exactly. And ultimately, better performance overall.
That makes a lot of sense. So what is it then? What allows some people to handle these difficult times maybe more effectively than others? Is it just something you're born with? Or is there more to it?
That's a really key question. And the good news, the encouraging part, is no, it's not just some fixed thing you either have or you don't.
Okay, good.
Resilience is actually more like a mix, a dynamic combination of different factors. And we all have these factors to different degrees, and they can even change, depending on the situation or where we are in life.
So it's more fluid than I might have thought. What are some of these key ingredients then? What makes up resilience?
Well, the EAP piece lists quite a few, which is great because it shows just how many angles there are to this. Things like having strong social supports, good relationships.
Yeah, that seems crucial.
Definitely. Maintaining optimism, having a sense of hope for the future, and what the source calls inherent potential.
Inherent potential. What does that mean exactly?
It's like that basic fundamental capacity we all have for growth and adapting. Even if it's buried sometimes, it's that raw material you build on.
Gotcha. Okay. So support, optimism, hope, potential. What else?
A positive view of yourself is really important. Good problem-solving skills, being able to manage your emotions effectively. Communication skills are key, too. Impulse control, thinking before acting. Flexibility, being adaptable.
Right, rolling with the punches sometimes.
Exactly. And we can't forget looking after our physical health.
Yeah.
Also, altruism, helping others, can actually build your resilience and having a sense of purpose.
Wow, that's quite a list. It really shows it's not just one thing.
It really does.
Yeah.
And there's more. Being able to make sense of tough situations, planning realistically, learning from your past experiences, and just generally trying to cultivate positivity.
Yeah.
And the source really highlights again and again that positive social support, hope, and optimism. Those seem to be particularly powerful factors.
Yeah, those three keep coming up. Now, I noticed something in the material about managing stress. How does that fit in? Can handling some stress actually help?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. The idea is that when we face manageable stress and we face it repeatedly, our minds and bodies kind of learn. They adapt.
Like building up tolerance.
Sort of, yeah. It can improve how we respond to bigger stressors down the road. And the really empowering thing here is that most of these factors we've listed, They're not set in stone. You can actively work on them, develop them, strengthen them over time.
Okay, so this is really practical then. It's not just theory. We can actively build our own resilience. Where does someone even start with that?
Right. And the source suggests starting with a bit of self-reflection. Think about how you usually react when things get tough.
Like taking stock of your default settings.
Pretty much. What kinds of things tend to, trigger a strong emotional response in you or make you feel really uncertain? And then what's your go-to way of dealing with that?
Do you get stuck, maybe?
Yeah.
In negative thought?
Yeah, or do you jump straight into trying to fix everything without really processing how you feel about it? Can you recognize when you need help versus when you can handle it solo? And importantly, do you even know what help is available to you?
Those are some heavy-hitting questions,
Mm-hmm.
but important ones. It sounds like just understanding your own patterns is the first critical step.
Absolutely, because once you see your usual reactions clearly, then you can start to consciously change the ones that aren't really helping you.
Okay.
And the EAP piece gives some very concrete actions we can take.
Let's hear them. What can we actually do?
All right, first big one, relationships. Actively cultivate and nurture those positive connections, family, friends, coworkers, people who lift you up.
And maybe let go of the draining ones.
Exactly. Distance yourself from negativity where you can. Second, practice optimism. It takes effort, but consciously look for the positive, even in tough situations, and talk about it.
That can feel really hard sometimes, though, when you're right in the middle of something awful.
Oh, absolutely. It requires real conscious effort. But even small shifts add up, and related to that is fostering hope. When things feel overwhelming, pause, take a breath. Focus on just the next small step forward.
Just keep moving, basically.
Right. Another really useful technique, reframing. Change the negative thoughts, change the words you use. The example they give is great. Instead of big arguments, think loud discussions.
Ah, I see. It kind of takes the emotional sting out of it just by changing the label.
Exactly. It shifts your perception.
Yeah.
Also, altruism, doing things for others. It shifts your focus outward, gives you purpose beyond your own stuff.
That makes sense.
And increase flexibility. Be open to trying different ways of doing things. And of course, the basics. Self-care. Physical health matters, checkups, diet, exercise.
The fundamentals.
Yep. And finally, know your resources. Find out what support is available in your community before you need it, if possible, for during and after tough events.
Those are all really tangible actions, things you can actually start doing. Now, the piece also talks about leadership and fostering resilience in a group, like a workplace.
Yeah.
Why is that important even if you're not, the boss?
Because leaders at any level, really formal or informal, set the tone. Their approach creates ripples. The source specifically points to supervisors in a workplace. They're often that key link, right, between employees and upper management. They're the ones providing practical info about resources, decisions, plans, especially when things are tough.
They're kind of on the front lines of support.
Exactly. Good supervisors understand what the source calls social capital. They know who to ask, where to find help. Their network matters. But maybe even more important, they build psychological resources. That's the inner set of self-belief, coping skills. And that's absolutely critical when, say, budgets are tight and tangible resources are scarce.
So they build people up internally.
Yes. And simple things like clear, positive communication from a supervisor, that goes a long way. It helps cooperation, problem solving, cuts down on conflict.
Yeah, I can see how a leader's calm, clear approach would make everyone feel a bit more secure during uncertain times.
Definitely. And think about optimism. A supervisor with an optimistic style helps their team see setbacks as, well, temporary things, external things, not personal failures and successes. Those are seen as earned, internal, and lasting. Leaders who frame challenges as chances to learn and grow, who encourage positive thinking, who offer real emotional support, they're actively building resilience in their people.
And I guess leading by example is huge here too.
Oh, absolutely critical. When leaders show hope, positivity, optimism, when they manage their own emotions well, that's powerful modeling.
People notice that.
They do. And showing you genuinely care about your people, that encourages them to care back, to be committed. Supervisors are also like teachers, right? Helping people master tasks, learn new skills that builds their confidence, their self-efficacy, which is core to resilience.
It's a good reminder that leadership is so much more than just giving orders. It's about nurturing strength. Now, the material also mentions something called re-traumatization. What should we know about that?
Yeah, re-traumatization is when someone experiences really intense emotions tied to a past trauma because something in the present triggers it.
What kind of triggers?
It can be lots of things. Anniversaries of the event, finding yourself in a similar situation, even just the threat of something bad happening. Media reports can do it. Hearing about someone else's trauma.
Wow.
The key thing is those feelings can come flooding back just as intensely as the first time.
So even if something happened years ago, a trigger can make it feel like it's happening right now.
Exactly. And that's another reason why building resilience is so important. It helps people manage and hopefully lessen the impact when those triggers pop up.
Okay. The piece also talks about navigating the new normal after things have been really difficult. Many of us can relate to that idea, I think. What helps during that phase?
Yeah, organizations and individuals too often need to get back to functioning fairly quickly, even if things aren't fully back to how they were.
Right.
The source outlines some key principles for that, things like prioritizing safety, obviously, trying to stay calm, having a good sense of yourself, your own, needs that self-awareness again.
Mm-hmm.
And being really mindful of resources, both the tangible ones like supplies or support systems, and the psychological ones we've been talking about. And it's crucial to remember, even in this new normal, re-traumatization is still possible.
So stay vigilant, stay supportive.
Pretty much. Ultimately, the piece concludes that resilience, whether it's something you naturally have, something you've worked hard to build, or something your environment supports, it's just essential for individuals, for groups, for organizations to function well during tough times and after them.
This has been such a helpful breakdown. And it's good to know there are specific resources.
Yeah.
You mentioned the USPS Employee Assistance Program. Can you give that contact info again?
Sure. For anyone listening who wants to learn more, maybe boost their own resilience or support their teams, the USPS EAP offers confidential counseling and coaching.
Okay.
The number is 1-800-EAP-4YU. That's 1-800-327-4968. And they also have a TTY line, 877-492-7341. Definitely a valuable resource.
Great. So just to kind of wrap things up, the main takeaway here is that resilience isn't some magic trait only a few people have, right?
Not at all. It's a process. It's ongoing. And it's something all of us can tap into and actively develop.
It's not about dodging problems.
No, because challenges are, well, they're part of life. It's about strengthening our ability to navigate them effectively, to bounce back, and maybe even grow from them.
So as you're listening and reflecting on this, maybe think about just one or two things we talked about today, one or two practical steps that really stood out to you.
Yeah, something actionable you could maybe start trying out in your own life.
And maybe consider this.
Mm-hmm.
How might working on even just one of these resilience factors actually shift how you see a challenge you're facing right now?
That's a great thought to leave people with. What new possibilities might open up just from that small shift in perspective?
Well, this deep dive gave us a really solid framework, drawing on those expert insights from the USPS EAP piece. We definitely encourage you to keep thinking about this, keep exploring, and use those resources if they feel right for you.